The colossal misunderstanding about time is the assumption that insight will work with people who are unmotivated to change. Communication does not depend on syntax or eloquence or rhetoric or articulation, but on the emotional context in which the message is being heard. People can only hear you when they are moving towards you, and they are not likely to when your words are pursuing them. Even the choicest of words lose their power when they are used to overpower. Attitudes are the real figures of speech. And this week's opening quote comes from Edwin H. Freeman. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I'll be your host for the next hour. Well, folks, interesting times in the world today. As I've been saying recently, we are quite literally walking on a knife edge at the moment. I have been pointing this out to you for quite a while. And I have been saying that 2015 is going to be a year to look out for because they're going to be rolling a lot of stuff out in 2015, and we've seen that they are doing precisely that. And if the truth be told, folks, it would appear that the end game has now begun in earnest. Much of what is happening in the United States seems to be in preparation for something that is right around the corner. And we've been expecting this for a long time. It's just that most people have been viewing all of the information that we've been bringing to the world, myself and other researchers and radio hosts have been bringing to the world. Most people have been viewing it as simply some type of spy novel, and the very interesting and fascinating secret story about the hidden mechanism and the hidden hand and the terrible psychopathic global elite and their nefarious plans. It's like some sort of a movie that people believe they're watching or something. They haven't seemed to have realized that they are actually participating in this movie, and that we have had every opportunity to rewrite the script ourselves if we would only choose to participate, stand up, be counted, and get involved in the global situation. The problem, of course, has been that people have been trained to believe that they are simply little people who can't affect change, and they've been kind of trained to leave the workings of the system to the bigger people at the top who know what's going on, leave things in their hands, and they will work stuff out for you. But the reality is, folks, that there is a war going on, and it's been going on for a very long time. As I mentioned in my very first film, The Big Picture, in 2008, World War III has already started, and what World War III is a war that is being waged against the common people of the world by the global elite, those who control the financial systems and who control our governments. They have been carrying out a slow genocide against the people of all the countries of this earth for quite some time now. They're doing it not only with the wars that they're conducting in the Middle East and places like Ukraine, but there is a soft kill operation going on in all countries through food additives, fluoride, aerial spraying, and vaccination programs. And because people are beginning to wake up to the control grid, now they are locking the control grid down, and they're doing it in a very, very efficient way. And it fascinates me that people are simply standing by and watching all this happen around them. And they're constantly commenting on it, but nobody is really doing anything about it. Nobody's really rallying their communities. Nobody seems to be asking the right questions to the politicians. Nobody appears to be taking any type of positive action to circumvent the actions of these people. And that's a very concerning situation because they are really rolling things out this year, folks, and you've just got to look at the global situation and start connecting the dots, and the future that these people are attempting to create becomes very, very apparent. And I'd like to connect a few of those dots for you today, actually, and I don't want to be fear-mongering with any of this, but I think it's important to pay attention to some of the key issues that are happening around us in our communities at the moment. And when looking at these issues, not to just view them as local issues, but to put them on a global stage and see where they fit in with everything else. And we know what the plans of these people are. We've been talking about it for years, so let's just step back and look at what's unfolding before us, shall we? And folks, when looking at these issues, it's important to understand the mentality of these people, to understand the mentality of the global elite, and to look at what your motivations are and what you do in addressing this situation as well. I mean, I can't stress this enough. It's important to understand who we're dealing with. And it's very important for people to maintain their focus on their own inner state, the motivation in their actions, what their intentions are in what they're doing, why they are speaking out against this system. And look, in looking at the global elite, a lot of people have said to me, look, you've just got to send love to these people, and we need to heal these people and help them see the world from a more humane or human perspective. And sure, look, I can understand that mentality, I can understand that line of thought, and when I talk about these people and I speak out against these people, I don't do it out of hatred for them. I love them the way I love all living creatures, but I'm not going to bother trying to send these people positive energy because they're simply not susceptible to it, and I'm never going to change their mind. I'm never going to change their way of thinking because I can understand what they are and who they are. And like I said, folks, I don't do anything I do out of hatred. I do it because of my positive intention for the future of mankind. I do what I do out of love for all mankind, and my disgust at the actions of these people, well, not even disgust, I don't know if that's even the right word. Really, it's my absolute horror at what I see being perpetrated against the innocent souls on this planet. That's why I do what I do. I do what I do because I can see a better future if mankind would simply step back and take stock of themselves a little bit. But I view these people as what they are, folks, and so I can understand why people would say, well, perhaps we just have to send loving energy to these people. But you've got to understand these people are psychopaths, folks. They don't have any empathy. And because you're dealing with people who have no empathy, it's very difficult to even judge what these people are doing as evil. It's what we perceive evil to be. But really, it's simply psychopathy. And yes, sure, it's kind of evil what they're doing. It is evil actions, but they do so because they have no empathy. They don't view people as being part of the equation. If vast numbers of people die, it doesn't matter. It's just collateral damage to them. It's the way we would view a colony of ants or a herd of cattle or a flock of sheep. I mean, as a society, ants mean nothing to us, and as for sheep and cattle, well, we breed these creatures and we harvest them and we eat them, and we do so generally with no remorse. And sure, it's cruelty to do this from a realistic perspective, but from a social perspective, we do it unconsciously. We don't think about it. We don't view it as cruel. It's just an unconscious psychopathic action that people carry out, completely without thought. And this is generally because we just don't have empathy for the animals that we're killing and harvesting and eating. We don't have empathy for them because we're trained to believe that these are just dumb animals. They're not of any consequence. They don't think the way we do. They have no memory and emotion the way we do. And so they're a lower species and they're just there for us. And people have been generally trained to believe this, whether it's true or not. We believe that because we have the power of speech, it makes us better than everything else. It doesn't make us better. It makes us exceptional because we are able to communicate things on a far more complex level than many animals are. And so as a species, we have generally been removed of any empathy for the animals, which is what allows us to do what we do to them. And this is all due to the training that we've had, the shutdown of our right brain. I mean, I could get into all sorts of esoteric reasons as to why this has occurred, but the fact is that this is generally how we are as a society in the way we view the animal kingdom. And all of this is based on a lack of empathy, and that empathy has been removed from us due to the training that we've had. And it's the same for the elite. They'd have no thought or concern for the hardship that they cause other people. It's not part of the equation to them. It's all about managing the system and creating a totally left-brain structured reality that is mathematically and systemically perfect. They want a system that functions in a certain way because they value order. And people don't really come into the equation in this respect. And sure, there are psychopaths who operate within the highest levels of this system, and psychopaths do what psychopaths do. But at all of the other levels and all the tiers within the system, all of the people who operate within these tiers are trained to think this way. They're trained to view people as simply numbers on screens and collateral damage when they get hurt. Simply because these people have been trained at certain universities like Yale and Oxford and certain universities that are set up around the planet simply to educate these people in this manner of thinking. And so people very comfortably operate within the parameters of the psychopathic system, not because they are evil, but simply because they've been trained to think without empathy, at least in regard to any aspects of the business world. People may have empathy for their family members and for people that they know. They may love their dog, but when they go to the office and they start operating within that business structure, all empathy is removed from the equation and people simply become numbers on a screen. And it isn't about the people, it's about balancing the books and making the system more efficient, because this is the way they've been trained to think and it's the way they've been trained to operate. And they simply know no other way of functioning within the business world. So it's important to understand this, folks. If you really want to do something about the system and combat the system and create a better future and work for something positive, you need to understand how the system works. And it's also important to understand that there have been many traps laid for us in regard to how we should address this situation. I mean, when we protest against this system, when we attempt to take action against it, very often we seek to do so from the wrong perspective, in as much as we follow parameters that have been placed there for us to follow. We have protests, we have marches, we shake our fist at the system, we have people who stand up and talk and sprout violent rhetoric. But nothing really happens from all of these events. At the end of them, we all go home and the system remains where it is, and it lulls us into this state of fear inside for many people, where they sit at home cowering and they wait for something to happen. They start gathering ammo and guns and wait for the crunch to come down. But violent revolution will not achieve anything. It's not really the right approach to have. Because in violent revolution, who are you really directing your violence at? Who are you directing your anger at? Violent revolution breeds hatred. If the National Guard and the people who are out there performing the actions of the NSA are met with violence, then it creates anger, and that leads to hatred. And you're fighting innocent people who are simply doing what they're doing because they've been trained to do so. And they're fighting you because you're fighting back. And so this cycle happens, and we don't really get anywhere. And with all of this, I'm not saying don't defend yourself if people come to get you. I mean, hopefully it won't come to that. But if it does, well, yeah, you should defend yourself, absolutely. But I think we still have the means to circumvent that if we approach it in the right way. And that's why I tried to offer you that perspective earlier that I've just offered you of how the system is actually structured and how people operate within it. Because when you look at it that way, then who do you direct your anger at? Who is there to be angry with? Really, it's the system itself that is the problem. But there are mechanisms within the system that we can use to redress this situation now and circumvent the place we're heading to if we apply the right perspective to it. And if we approach it with the right intention, with an intention to heal this situation. And I think we do still have every opportunity to heal the situation if we can somehow find a way of uniting our community, because there are legal mechanisms in place within their fiction that we can use against them if we choose to stand up and call things for what they are. And because many of the people who function within the system are simply doing what they're trained to do, many of the people at the different tiers within the hierarchy, many of these people are not psychopaths. They're just operating within psychopathic parameters because they've been trained to operate from that perspective. The system is a psychopathic system. And when you work within that system, you're trained to view efficiency as success. And all efficiency does is consolidate the power of the system. And many people who work within this and who work to make the system more efficient do so simply because of their training, not because they're psychopaths. And I believe if these people are approached by an empowered community who stands up and speaks the truth eloquently and simply and plainly enough, then things will change. But even in saying that, it's important to understand that it needs to also be presented in the right manner. much the way I alluded to in the opening quote. You've got to have the correct emotional content there as well, folks. That's why anger is so ineffective in dealing with this. Anger and violence and screaming out rhetoric is so ineffective in dealing with this situation. You've got to remain calm and simply speak truthfully and call things for what they are. And that is the solution, and it's the solution because it is so effective that if the community stood up and did this, it's not really arguable. We're not creating violence, we're not creating confrontation, we're simply standing up and saying things in the way they need to be said, and we're not pulling any punches, we're just calling a spade and saying things for what they are. Hey, if we're wrong...